My girlfriend kept ignoring my warnings and ended up in trouble. Here's how it all fell apart. I spent 2 years trying to keep my girlfriend safe, but she kept lying about where she was going and landing in dangerous situations. From sketchy parties to late night fights, I was always the one picking up the pieces until I couldn't do it anymore. I was with my girlfriend Sarah for about 2 years. We were both in our mid-20s living in a decent-sized city, and things were good at first. She was fun, outgoing, and had this energy that made people gravitate toward her. I'm more reserved, the kind of guy who thinks things through and likes to avoid trouble. Early on, I noticed Sarah had a habit of brushing off my concerns. It wasn't a big deal at first, just small stuff, like her ignoring my advice to lock her car doors at night or to avoid sketchy shortcuts through poorly lit areas. I'd mention it, she'd laugh it off, and we'd move on. But over time, this pattern started to wear on me, especially when her decisions led to bigger problems. One of the first incidents that stuck with me happened about 6 months into our relationship. Sarah loved going out with her friends, which was fine. I wasn't the controlling type, and I trusted her to handle herself. But she had this tendency to dive headfirst into situations without thinking them through. There was this one night she wanted to go to a club with a group of her coworkers. I knew the place. It had a reputation for being rowdy, with fights breaking out in the parking lot sometimes. I told her to stick with her group and not wander off alone, especially late at night. She rolled her eyes, said I was being paranoid, and promised she'd be fine. I didn't push it, figuring she'd at least stay with her friends. Later that night, I got a frantic call from her around 2 a.m. She was crying, saying her phone was almost dead and she was stranded outside the club. Apparently, her coworkers had left without her, and she'd stayed behind to talk to some random guy she met at the bar. The guy turned out to be a creep, following her out to the parking lot and getting aggressive when she told him to back off. She managed to get away, but she was shaken up and had no ride home. I drove across town to pick her up, found her sitting on a curb, looking rattled but unhurt. On the way back, she kept apologizing, saying she didn't think it'd turn out like that. I was frustrated but tried to stay calm, telling her she needed to be more careful and stick with her friends like she said she would. She nodded, promised she'd listen next time, and that was that. But it wasn't a one-time thing. A few months later, something similar happened. Sarah got invited to a house party by a friend of a friend. I didn't know the host, and neither did she, really. I told her it sounded risky. Random house, random people, and she didn't even have the address until the last minute. I suggested she at least let me know where she'd be or go with someone she trusted. She brushed it off, saying it was just a chill party and I was overthinking it. This time, she didn't even tell me she was going until she was already there. I found out because she posted a story on her social media, showing her in some packed living room with a drink in her hand. Around midnight, my phone lit up with texts from her. She was freaking out because some guy at the party had gotten too handsy, and when she pushed him away, he got loud and started making a scene. The host ended up kicking her out because she was causing drama. She was stuck outside in a neighborhood she didn't know, with no way to get home. I drove over, found her sitting on the steps of the house, looking embarrassed and scared. She admitted she'd gone to the party alone, even though she'd told me earlier she was going with a group. I was pissed, not just because she lied, but because she put herself in a bad spot and then expected me to drop everything to fix it. When I brought it up, she got defensive, saying she didn't need a lecture and just wanted to go home. I bit my tongue, but it was hard not to feel like I was cleaning up a mess she could have avoided. These kinds of situations kept piling up. Sarah would ignore my warnings, end up in trouble, and then lean on me to bail her out. It wasn't just about her safety, it was the lying too. She'd tell me she was doing one thing, then do something else entirely, only admitting the truth when things went south. I started feeling less like her boyfriend and more like her personal crisis manager. Every time I'd tell her she needed to be more careful, and every time she'd agree, but nothing changed. The worst incident came about 1.5 years into our relationship. Sarah got invited to a big party at some loft downtown. It was one of those events with a mix of people. Some she knew, some she didn't. I had a bad feeling about it from the start. The area wasn't the safest, and the party sounded like it was going to be a free-for-all. I told her straight up that I didn't think it was a good idea to go alone. She insisted she was going with a couple of girlfriends and promised they'd stick together. I wasn't thrilled, but I trusted her to at least follow through on that. The night of the party, she stopped replying to my texts around 10 p.m. I didn't think much of it at first. She was probably just caught up in the moment. But by 1 a.m., I was worried. I called her, no answer. I texted her friends, and one of them got back to me saying they hadn't gone to the party with her. My heart sank. I had no idea where she was or what was going on. Around 3 a.m., I got a call from an unknown number. It was Sarah using someone else's phone. She was crying, her voice shaky, saying she'd been assaulted at the party. Some guy had cornered her in a hallway, grabbed her, and wouldn't let go until someone else stepped in. She was safe now, but needed me to come get her. I drove to the address she gave me, my mind racing. When I got there, she was sitting outside with a couple of people I didn't recognize. She looked shaken up. her makeup smudged from crying. I got her in the car and she told me what happened. She'd gone to the party alone, despite telling me she was with her friends. She'd had a few drinks, got separated from the crowd, and ended up in a bad situation. The guy who assaulted her was someone she'd been talking to earlier, thinking he was harmless. I was furious, not at her for being a victim, but for lying to me and putting herself in that position after I'd warned her. I asked why she didn't tell me the truth, and she just kept saying she didn't think it'd be a big deal. When we got home, she was still upset, and I tried to be there for her. But I couldn't shake the frustration. This wasn't just about one bad night. It was a pattern. She kept ignoring my advice, taking risks, and then expecting me to pick up the pieces when things went wrong. I started wondering how much longer I could keep doing this, feeling like I was always on call for her mistakes. After the loft party incident, things with Sarah didn't get better. I thought maybe that scare would make her rethink her approach, but it didn't. She was shaken up for a few days, kept close to home, and seemed to take my concerns more seriously, at least at first. We talked about what happened, and I tried to be supportive while also being honest about how her lying about going alone made it harder for me to trust her. She apologized, said she'd be more careful, and promised to keep me in the loop. I wanted to believe her, but deep down I knew this wasn't the end of it. A couple of months later, Sarah started hanging out with a new group of people she met through a coworker. They were into this underground music scene, going to pop-up raves and after-parties in sketchy parts of the city. I didn't have a problem with her having her own social life, but the vibe of these events worried me. She showed me some of the flyers: warehouses, abandoned buildings, no clear address until the last minute. I told her these setups were risky, especially since she didn't really know the people organizing them. She brushed it off, saying it was just music and dancing, and that I didn't get it because I wasn't into that scene. I asked her to at least share the location with me before she went, just in case. She agreed, but it felt like she was just humoring me. One weekend, she told me she was going to one of these raves with her new friends. She said it was at a warehouse on the edge of town, gave me a vague address, and promised she'd stick with her group. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured as long as she was with people she trusted, it'd be okay. I told her to text me when she got there and when she was leaving, just so I'd know she was safe. She said she would, gave me a quick kiss, and headed out. That night, I didn't hear from her. No text when she arrived, no updates, nothing. I sent her a message around midnight, just checking in, but got no reply. By 2 a.m., I was pacing, trying not to assume the worst, but feeling that familiar knot in my stomach. Around 4 a.m., my phone buzzed with a call from her. She was whispering, sounding panicked, saying she was stuck in some industrial area and didn't know how to get out. Apparently, her friends had ditched her after an argument, and she was alone, trying to find her way back to a main road. The area was dark with no streetlights, and she was freaking out because she'd seen some guys lingering, creeping around nearby. I grabbed my keys, got her to share her location, and drove out to find her. It took me almost an hour to get to the spot, a creepy stretch of empty lots and boarded-up buildings. I found her huddled behind a dumpster, looking terrified. She got in the car, and we didn't talk much on the way home. I was too frustrated, and she was too shaken. When we got back, she admitted she hadn't gone with the group she said she was with. She'd actually linked up with some random people from the music scene who seemed cool at first, but turned out to be unreliable. She didn't tell me because she knew I'd worry, and she thought she could handle it. I told her this was exactly the kind of thing I'd been warning her about: going to sketchy places with people she barely knew, lying about it, and then ending up in a bad spot. She got quiet, said she didn't mean for it to happen, and promised she'd stop taking risks. But I'd heard that promise before, and it was starting to sound hollow. The pattern kept going. A few weeks later, Sarah got invited to a late-night art gallery event. It sounded legit, some pop-up show in a trendy part of town. But I knew the area got rough after hours, with bars letting out and people getting rowdy. I told her to be careful, maybe go early and leave before it got too late. She said she was going with a couple of friends and would be out by midnight. I asked her to let me know when she was heading home, and she agreed. But midnight came and went. No text, no call. I tried reaching out, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I stayed up, trying not to panic, but by 3 a.m., I was ready to start driving around looking for her. She finally called me at 5 a.m., sounding out of it. She was at a 24-hour diner, alone, after getting into some mess at the gallery. Apparently, the event turned into an after-party, and her friends bailed early. She stayed, got caught up with some people she met there, and ended up in a fight with a girl who thought Sarah was flirting with her boyfriend. The situation got heated, and Sarah got pushed around before someone broke it up. She was too embarrassed to call me right away, so she wandered to the diner to wait it out. I picked her up, and she was a mess, hair all over the place, still a little buzzed from whatever she'd been drinking. I asked why she didn't just leave when her friends did, and she admitted she wanted to stay because the vibe was fun at first. I reminded her that I'd told her to leave early, and she got defensive, saying she didn't need me to keep tabs on her. At this point, I was exhausted. Every few weeks it was the same thing. Sarah ignoring my advice, getting into trouble, and then calling me to fix it. I started feeling like I was stuck in a loop, always on edge, waiting for the next crisis. I loved her, but the constant stress was wearing me down. I tried talking to her about it, laying out how her choices were putting her in danger and making me feel like I had to be her safety net. She'd listen, nod, say she'd do better, but nothing changed. I started wondering if she even took me seriously or if she just thought I'd always be there to clean up her messes. The breaking point came a few months later. Sarah got invited to a beach bonfire party about an hour outside the city. It was one of those big, open invite things that got shared around on social media. I told her it sounded like a bad idea. Remote location, tons of strangers, and no clear way to get home if things went wrong. She swore she was going with a big group, including some people I knew, and said they'd all stick together. I told her to keep her phone on and let me know if anything felt off. She promised she would and left for the night. I didn't hear from her until the next morning, around 7 a.m. She called me, voice shaking, saying she was at a gas station and needed a ride. When I got there, she looked rough, tired, dirty, like she hadn't slept. She told me the bonfire got out of hand. People were drinking heavily, some fights broke out, and she got separated from her group. She ended up wandering down the beach alone, trying to find her way back to the road, and some guy followed her for a while before she managed to lose him. She admitted she hadn't gone with the group she said she was with, just one friend who left early, leaving her on her own. I was done. I drove her home and we barely spoke. I couldn't keep doing this, worrying, rescuing, and dealing with the lies. Something had to change. After the beach bonfire incident, I hit my limit with Sarah. The drive back from the gas station was quiet, and I could feel the weight of everything piling up. I'd spent nearly 2 years dealing with her reckless decisions, her lies about where she was going, and her expecting me to swoop in when things went wrong. I wasn't just tired, I was done. I loved her, but I couldn't keep living like this, always on edge, waiting for the next call to bail her out of a mess she'd made. When we got back to her place, I told her we needed to talk. She looked nervous, like she knew what was coming, but I wasn't yelling or accusing. I just laid it out. Her pattern of ignoring my warnings, lying about her plans, and ending up in dangerous situations was breaking me down. I told her I couldn't keep being her safety net. Sarah got emotional, saying she didn't mean to put me in that position. She admitted she'd been careless, that she got caught up in the moment, and didn't think things through. She promised, again, that she'd change, that she'd listen to me and stop taking risks, but I'd heard it all before, too many times. Every promise came after a crisis, and nothing ever stuck. I told her I needed space to think about whether this relationship was working. She cried, asked me not to give up on her, but I wasn't sure what else to say. I left her place feeling drained, like I'd been carrying something heavy for too long. Over the next couple of weeks, I kept my distance. Sarah texted me a lot, apologizing, saying she was trying to be better. She even sent me screenshots of her turning down invites to parties, like she was proving she could change. I appreciated the effort, but it felt like too little, too late. I couldn't shake the feeling that she only wanted to change now because I was pulling away. I started thinking about all the times I'd warned her, all the times she'd brushed me off, and how she only seemed to take me seriously when things blew up in her face. It wasn't just about trust, it was about respect. I felt like she didn't respect me enough to listen until it was too late. One night, about a month after the bonfire, Sarah called me, asking if we could meet up. I agreed, and we met at a coffee shop we used to go to early in our relationship. She looked different, more subdued, like some of her usual spark was gone. She said she'd been thinking a lot about what I'd said and realized she'd been selfish. She admitted she liked the thrill of spontaneous plans and didn't want to feel tied down, but she knew her choices had hurt me. She said she was trying to be more careful, sticking to safer outings with people she actually knew. I listened, but I didn't feel the same pull I used to. I told her I appreciated her trying, but I wasn't sure I could keep going with things the way they were. The lying, the risks, the constant stress, it had worn me out. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and said she understood. We didn't officially break up that day, but it felt like the beginning of the end. Over the next few weeks, we saw each other less and less. I'd get texts from her, updates about her day or how she was staying out of trouble, but the connection wasn't there anymore. I started focusing on myself, hanging out with friends, picking up hobbies I'd let slide, and just enjoying not being on high alert all the time. It was like I could finally breathe. Sarah, meanwhile, seemed to be trying to keep her word. From what I heard through mutual friends, she was sticking to low-key hangouts and avoiding the chaotic scenes she used to chase. I was glad for her, but it didn't change how I felt. The final straw came a couple of months later. I got a call from Sarah in the middle of the night, something I hadn't heard in a while. She was at a bar downtown, not far from where we lived. She sounded upset, but not panicked, which was different. She said she'd gone out with a couple of coworkers, had a few drinks, and got into an argument with some guy who wouldn't leave her alone. She handled it herself, told the bartender, got the guy kicked out, but she was shaken up and didn't want to walk home alone. She asked if I could come get her. For a second, I almost said yes out of habit, but then I stopped myself. I told her I was glad she was okay, but that she should call a friend or a rideshare. I wasn't her go-to fix anymore. She didn't argue, just said she understood and hung up. I sat there for a while, staring at my phone, feeling a mix of guilt and relief. It was the first time I'd said no, and it felt like I was finally letting go of the role I'd been stuck in. I didn't hear from her for a while after that. Mutual friends told me she was doing okay, still going out but being more cautious. I hoped that was true for her sake. As for me, I realized how much her actions had been weighing me down. I wasn't angry anymore, just ready to move on. Looking back, I don't think Sarah meant to cause trouble. She just had this need to live on the edge, to chase excitement, and she didn't see the risks until they hit her. I tried to be there for her, to keep her safe, but I couldn't keep up with the chaos. Breaking things off wasn't easy, but it was the right call. I learned a lot about what I need in a relationship: honesty, mutual respect, and someone who doesn't need me to play hero every time they make a bad choice. I'm in a better place now, and I hope Sarah is too.